You just won $5,000
Yeah.
from this like DMZ pitch competition.
Yeah.
And then Leo said, "Holy cow! Like this is like the best idea you've had in months."
Yeah.
And you guys were trying a bunch of different stuff. Stuff wasn't working.
Yeah.
And why do you think that that $5,000 and like the idea to go to SF was like the next thing to try? Like, was it because there was just nothing else you could think of, or like you just had an idea that, hey, if you just go back to SF, something magical is gonna happen?
Yeah, man, I think it's just really interesting. You work on something like for 9 months, we're cooped up in our apartments and nothing's working. We just need like an opportunity. We really just felt like we needed to get it in front of people. And for us just being, working out of Ottawa, and like we just didn't think there was enough opportunities for us here. So we're like, you know what, let's kind of take this leap. We have like very little money in the bank account. Let's just spend this and kind of go to where, a lot of people get these crazy opportunities. So we've heard. So that's kind of, it's a mix of being an entrepreneur back against a wall, no other option, and like, let's just take a risk. Like, let's just go and see what happens. So that was kind of the thought process when going.
Gotcha. And then once you're in SF, it was Tech Week, and then you were, you said you were meeting people and going to events every single day, right?
Yeah, so it was Leo, myself, my third co-founder, and before we went, we just signed up to as many events as possible, emailed a bunch of investors, like just telling them like, hey, like want to grab coffee, we may or may not be raising, like just, a little bit of fluff, but that's kind of what you have to do. So we signed up to all these events, and the three of us just went out there and we just pitched like everybody.
Was it just you or
it was all three of us, all co-founders, CTOs pitching, everyone's pitching because, we're just looking for any opportunities. So we just be at events like with our laptops, like really trying to just shoving in people's faces, like, do you think this is cool? Like, would you pay for this? And stuff like that. So that was like, and that was a month. And they were doing that every single day for basically a month.
So 30 days straight.
Yeah.
And what month was this?
This was October of 2024.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was pretty disheartening, like, because you go out there with this idea and you're trying to make it work and it's not being received well. But, you go there because it's a chance. And even though many of those conversations didn't work out, there was one that did work out.
Yeah, so tell me about that one conversation that worked out. Who was it with, and then what was the conversation about?
Months prior to going, we actually met this entrepreneur online, and he was working on some LLM testing. I think you remember this, the unit testing.
Yes, like the Reddit post that got like 100 downvotes.
Yeah, exactly. So we started working with him like months ago, and he didn't have it figured out. We didn't, but we're like, you know what? Like, we're kind of working in the same space. Like, let's collaborate a bit. And what ended up happening was, after working with him, like, he left that project and that company he was working at the time, and he got a new co-founder, and he actually ended up getting into YC. So when we came down, we're like, hey man, like, we're in SF, like, we'd love to see you. This is someone we've only met online, so it's time to kind of meet IRL. So we went out for lunch with him, and it was just one of those times where you just get very lucky, and one of the opportunities of being in person comes, because when we were there and chatting with him, he was just in YC, he was in the program at the time, and he was just telling us that, you guys came at a good time. There's actually this YC dinner. I can only bring one of you though, so if one of you want to come, I can bring you. And that was just crazy because, again, like, YC is just this far off, dream or far off thing in the distance. So when that opportunity came up, we just kind of grabbed it. So thankfully, Leo was super nice because this was his friend that he met and introduced me to, and he was very selfless and allowed me to go to YC and like do that dinner. So I got that invite. It was tentative, but it was like kind of like the first opportunity we had.
Right. So you were there for 30 days. So which day in that month was it that you met with this guy?
Yeah. So we met him on it was definitely in the last week, and when he told us about that dinner, it was still very tentative, and we're like, okay, well, we'll just kind of wait. And we actually didn't hear back from him, and I remember it was our last day in San Francisco, second last day, sorry, and me and Leo were on the bus because, it wasn't like we weren't riding nice. I remember in the bus in Russian Hill, and I get an email on my phone, and I look, and the name on it is Garry Tan. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm reading the email, and it's basically like, hey Josh, so and so told me about what you're building. It'd be great to meet you. Why don't you come to the office for this dinner? And I was like, oh my god, like what the heck? And I showed Leo, and like we just couldn't believe it. So I remember when we were on the bus, my first reaction after showing him was I just yanked the cord, and then bus stopped, and then I hopped out, and then just got in an Uber. And I remember I got the email at like 5:55, and it was like, yeah, like let's meet at 6. I'm halfway across town, so jumped off the bus, called the Uber, and like made my way to like Dogpatch to go to the YC HQ to meet Garry and have this dinner.
Yeah. So you did actually go to the dinner.
I did go to the dinner, but I didn't meet Garry. I think the email was like automated or something like that. But I did end up going to the dinner. It was an amazing time. If you've never been to like inside the YC HQ, like when they have these dinners and they bring these speakers in, it's kind of like Hogwarts, like long tables, bunch of food, like lots of drinks and stuff like that. Everybody's like swapping stories and like talking about tech and whatnot. So it was like an amazing energy that I don't think I've ever felt before. So while we were there, we ate. The CEO of DoorDash was there, and he gave his talk on his background, which was amazing. And then, like, you get one of these opportunities, you're in the YCHQ, like you better start pitching. So I remember after the chat, I was looking for group partners or anybody to speak to, and someone pointed out David Leib to me. So
And who was David Leib?
yeah, so David Leib is the founder of Bump. So Bump was that app where you like bump phones together and like you'd share photos.
Before my generation.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure that went on to become Google Photos, which is just incredible. So I remember I went up to David and I was just pitching my life out to him, and I was like, hey man, like this is my name, this is what I'm building, like this, that, the third. And I remember like you pitch somebody who's like seen it all before, so you never know what they're really gonna say. And I remember I was super happy because the only thing he really said was he's like, like that's pretty interesting, and like that was kind of enough. I think you mentioned like I've never heard that before or something like that. So
it's a new idea.
Something new,
who had seen so many ideas, right?
Someone who's seen everything, to pitch them something and to get a reaction like that, like it felt really good. So once he gave me that reaction, I was like, can I get your email? Like I'd love to stay in touch. Like I never had plans to get in YC at the time, but just wanted to stay connected. And he ended up giving us his email, and yeah.
Very nice, very nice. So you got his email,
Yeah.
you got his contact. It was your very last day in SF for your trip, right?
Yeah.
So I guess you came back to Ottawa, and what happened after that?
We'd just been in SF for about a month, and honestly, we didn't have much to show for it. Like we were out pitching, we were trying to share the vision, see what people like, see what people didn't like, and at the end of the month, you run out of money, you kind of have to go home. So we ended up going back to Ottawa, and at the time, it was 3 of us, and we had been working for about 10, 11 months at that time. And, when we got back, my third co-founder, there's a bit of an energy switch. So just felt he was a bit more distant, and, the vibes weren't as right as they were before. And it was kind of tough because, like, shortly after he came to me and he told me, he's like, hey, man, like, I'm going to be honest, like, we've been doing this for over a year, and I don't see it. Like, we went to SF, we weren't successful with our raise or, getting on like these LOIs or all that stuff. So, I think I'm going to step back. And that was really hard, just because it had been the 3 of us for the longest time, and someone you spent so much time with. So when they kind of tell you they don't really believe in the same vision you guys kind of create together, it's tough. But thankfully, I ended that very amicably. So once he told me that, I was like, you know what? I understand this isn't really for everybody. We have been working for a while, and not the most to show for it. So I would say maybe a few weeks after we got back in November, he actually ended up leaving the company, and then it was just me and Leo. So that was tough.
Yeah. So you guys, when you were in SF, you actually did have like, I guess, something to show for, right? You actually had that connection with David Leib, but then I guess when you went on that trip, you probably had like expectations of like, okay, customers, at least LOIs or prospects who are interested in what we're showing off to people. So it makes sense. Like if I were in his shoes, I would probably be like there's like nothing. Literally, we did so much for 30 days, and we've got nothing to show for.
Yeah.
Time to get back and get a job at a company here back in Canada.
Yeah.
And he ended up leaving, and it was just you and Leo. So what was like the vibe like after that?
Man, I remember I'll never forget this night where we had the conversation, and I was talking to my co-founder on Discord, and then I kind of just got the vibe that he was going to leave, and I'm calling Leo. I'm like, you need to get on this call right now. And we had the conversation as amicable, and then, you know, me and Leo were just like, damn, like, what do we do next? Because, like I said, we'd just been in SF, not the most to show for it, all of that. We were like on limited funds. We're like, okay, like it's looking pretty grim. You know what I mean? So it was definitely tough. I remember we went out and we just like spoke about it, and, you know, thankfully we weren't like as down in the dumps as we could have been. We're like, look, like we still have an opportunity and stuff like that. You know, I remember, I think right as soon as we got back, we actually applied to YC, which wasn't clear at the beginning, but the three of us, like we recorded it and our application submitted, but then it had been like about a month later, and I knew the program was starting in January and we didn't hear anything back. It's like late November, so we're like, okay, I'm not getting in, and that was around the time he left too. So yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
Yeah, so, you know, right after, like maybe a week after he left, we were just in our apartment working, like truthfully very lost. And I remember we get this email out of nowhere. And again, it's this Garry Tan email.
Same name.
Like, same name. We're like, what the heck? So we basically got this email saying, hey, like we want to interview you. Saw your application. We want to interview you. And we just couldn't believe it. We're like, oh my God, like a lifeline. And, you know, as excited as we were super nervous because we did our application a few weeks ago and now we're down a co-founder and like things aren't looking the best. So, you know, we're not going to skip the interview, but we had the interview scheduled for 2 days later and we ended up taking it. So the interview was pretty interesting because it was 10 minutes, like super quick. Like as soon as it starts, like it's basically done. And I remember I thought that I was going to interview with David because that's the person I met with, but you don't know, it's just like a Zoom link. And when we got on, it was me, Leo, and then it was Garry sitting right there. And he was the one who ended up interviewing us. So that was kind of like a crazy experience.
Cool. So would you say that David Lee had some kind of like influence over how you guys got the interview?
Man, I hope so. I really hope so. I hope that like what I did in person really helped us get that interview, maybe put in a good word. But yeah, I think it's partially that, a lot of luck, you know how it goes. So yeah.
And on that interview panel, there was somebody else, right? Like a visiting group partner.
Yeah. So there was a visiting group partner, Eric Levine. So he was on it as well. And like I mentioned, the interview was pretty interesting. It was 10 minutes. It was very to the point. What are you making? How does this work? How are people going to adopt it and stuff like that? And we just answered like the best we could at the time. But I remember as soon as it's over, we're like, wow, okay, that was like a YC interview. And we shortly got an email basically a few minutes later saying, hey, thanks for the interview. If you don't mind, can you send us all of your recent like Git commits? And we're like, what the heck? And I think that was because like when we were on the call, we told them that our co-founder just left. So they're probably like, what the heck? So let me see like some work or some backup from it. So we ended up sending it to them, and we thought that was kind of the end of it. And then maybe like 20 minutes later after we send that, Eric, the visiting partner, messaged me and he's like, hey, thanks for sending that over. If you don't mind, can I actually speak to your ex-co-founder? Like, oh my God. So I remember that it was just like crazy, like, all right, I guess we can do that. So I call up my ex-co-founder and I kind of have to tell him, I'm like, man, I knew you left the company like a week ago, but we ended up getting an interview with YC and they want to speak with you. Like, would you be open to speaking with them? And like, I'm just very grateful that we ended things like very amicably, because if we had not, there could have been some bad blood. But thankfully, when I called him, he said, you know what? Yeah, sure. I can do that for you. Like, no hard feelings. Great. So
great guy.
You know, amazing guys. So I send them his number. They call him, and then after they spoke to him, they're like, "All right, guys, like we'll let you know." And then we're just sitting there like waiting. We're like, okay, now it feels very real. They're asking all this information. Are we actually going to get in? And then that just led us for like, I think we were waiting for like 6 hours because they were on Pacific time, we're on Eastern. We're just sitting at our desk waiting, just like, are we going to get in? Are they going to reject us? Like,
by the time you knew that they were making decisions on your application, right?
It was so late in the process. There's no way they weren't going to make a decision pretty quick. And then yeah, I remember we were waiting for like 6 hours. And then I remember I was sitting and I got a call, and it was the San Francisco, San Francisco number. And I just go to Leo. I'm like, oh my God. And then we opened the call, put on speaker, and it was Garry. And he was like, hey guys, like, it was great. Thank you for providing all the information. I want you to be a part of this program. So we're freaking out, like, oh my God, like we got into YC, like, like you can expect how it'd go, like after taking so many L's for so long and then getting a call like that. Like it was a really special moment.
Yeah. And then I remember after that, you guys were looking at like apartments in SF for a little bit, and then trying to figure out like what are you gonna do, how you're gonna spend your time.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if it was you or Leo who said that. Oh, we're just gonna DoorDash every single day.
That was Leo's plan. Yeah, I remember. Like, you get into YC, you start feeling nice. He's like, I don't want to cook anymore. That's like, I just want to code all day. I don't want to cook at all. So I remember his plan was like, let's just DoorDash everything, and like, all right, I guess let's do it. But that was pretty short lived. Like, of course, it didn't last long. But yeah, I remember Leo was talking about that.
Yeah. Speaking about like how you spend your time, like, was it that were you guys intentionally like spending a lot more time just kind of like lock in, doing your own thing, or were you like going to different events, meeting people through like the YC network and YC events during the batch?
Yeah, we actually got some flack for this because when we went into the program, we were just very focused on being heads down. We're like, we have a finite amount of time. We only had like 2.5 months in the program. So we were just very focused on, let's get as much work done. Let's see how far we can get, progress like that in that short amount of time. And I remember Leo made a post basically saying something to the like of, we're not going to any more events on LinkedIn. We're not going to any more events. We're staying heads down, like nothing extra. Like we're just here to grind. And then like, it was a great post on LinkedIn, but then like, I remember the YC community kind of came at us like, you have to go to the events, you're missing out on the experience and stuff like that, and then we had to take the post down. But yeah, we were very focused on just working as hard as we could, like within that, because it's so short, man. You're only in program for like 2 months, 2.5 months, so you need to make as much progress and traction as possible. So
was that a good piece of advice that you should have gone out and to all the events?
I think so, man. Like, I would love to say we could just sit down, grind 16 hours a day and do that. But, like it puts a toll on you. And again, YC is such a unique experience, and you're genuinely in a group with so many impressive founders. Like, you really should be trying to network and meet these people. You never know who's going to be building like the next unicorn and stuff like that. So it was, I don't think it was the best take to not go to any events, but by then we were going to a lot. We met a lot of amazing people working and building great companies.
Yeah, I remember talking to you, and I think there were like, agent frameworks or agentic frameworks that I use for some of my projects, and then like the founder of those projects were actually living literally in the same building as you guys. Yeah. And you guys run into each other in like at the gym or like just walking around Dogpatch. So I thought that was really cool.
We were very focused, like really just locked in. We were just trying to build product, validate, speak to as many customers as possible, like all day, every day, like those 16-hour days type of thing. I think you saw the video that viral video of us like working for 16 hours. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of that in the program.
So you were like on calls with customers back to back. Leo was just like sitting like 2 feet away. Yeah. Just like on cursor, just like
man.
building stuff.
In the trenches, like you're trying to vibe code these prototypes to show to like some enterprise in like a few hours, and then someone else comes with another ask and you need to kind of show some proof. So it was constantly building product and talking to customers, and I think that's all you really should be doing in program. Build product, talk to customers, and that's kind of it. You know what I mean?
Were you using like other companies in the batch, like their tools to go through your batch?
I wouldn't say so. There wasn't that many built-out tools. Everybody's still very early, so we were just relying on kind of what was popular at the time, be it the cursors, the V0s, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I remember you mentioned you were building V0s for prototypes, sending it to like prospective customers and like getting feedbacks, and then go back, prompt some stuff, change some stuff. Yeah. Because your background is you were a designer, right?
Yeah.
So like, How was that like, just vibe coding a bunch of prototypes instead of building like Figma mockups?
It was very different. I think as a designer, I have this like level of quality I expect of myself when creating something. But I'm telling you, when you're under the gun and you need to provide something within like 24 hours, you have to move as fast as possible. Like we had an opportunity with an enterprise where during batch we went to their headquarters and we basically demoed the product that we had built at the time. I generally thought we were going to close the deal, but as soon as we went in, it was kind of like a taste of reality. They're like, yeah, like this would never work. Like, we can't actually use this. Like our systems are so complex. Like this isn't realistic. And then I remember after they kind of just like shut us down, we're like, okay, what would work? Like we're onto something. Like you wouldn't have taken this meeting otherwise. And they gave us this very specific, iteration of the idea that we had shown them. And they're like, if you could build that, then we're interested. And we're like, okay. So then I remember we'd go back to our apartment and then we just hit V0 and we're like prompting out this clickable prototype for them. And I remember we turned it around in like less than 24 hours. We went right back to them and we're like, is this what you wanted? Like, this is kind of what you're explaining. And we hit the mark and we ended up getting that deal with them off of like a V0 prototype. So that was pretty powerful for me because I'd never done that in the past. But these things that kind of seem impossible, like you can kind of make them work, just how you go about it.
What is the current iteration of Outlit as of today? And then how did you arrive at this current iteration?
Yeah, so we're creating an AI workspace for custom sales proposals. So there's been a lot of iterations to get to this point. At first, at the earliest stages, we were really fixated on using AI for contracts, and we found ourselves in a place where we're trying to apply that to procurement contracts because there's so many manual things in terms of reviewing and such like that, so we thought that was like a prime use case. And then I remember we spoke to so many procurement people and we just got the door like slammed in our face like more times than I can count. It was pretty disheartening, but you iterate and you continue. And then I remember we went down the procurement path and then it wasn't working, and then we got caught up with one customer who was like, I see a real application for this for legal. And we're like, okay, like great, like I think we can do that. And then that was, for majority of our time spent on prior to YC, was how can we build these AI agents for legal contracts? I know you remember it because I showed you prototypes, like so many versions of it and stuff like that. And we really thought that was going to be the one, but I think working into it more, we just didn't see this clear path of product market fit going the legal route, at least for us. We didn't have the best founder market fit for that idea. Once we ran through the legal, we were just kind of desperate to find like this use case. We had this great product that worked with contracts, but we didn't have like a very strong use case. And that's when I remember we came across this term and this function called deal desk. So deal desk is essentially this function in enterprises that reviews and approves every sales contract because like sometimes sales reps will like discount an agreement like 80, 100% just to get the deal done. So deal desk is there to like do the reviews. And that was kind of a very niche, interesting use case that we thought we could really make the product for. So that was kind of our inspiration. So we're like, let's see what's going on with deal desk. But when we went to look into deal desk, we couldn't find any resources or any community. So
it's like a completely new role, right?
Yeah. It's very, very early. Yeah, it's just one of those things that more so larger enterprises are adopting, but even downstream, seeing more companies need deal desk managers and deal desk roles because they need to close better deals. And when we were looking for the community and resources, we didn't find anything. So we kind of had a pretty cool idea. We're like, well, let's just create the deal desk community.
The first community.
Yeah, there was really nothing available for that. So what we did was we kind of tracked down these deal desk people, got them in the Slack workspace, and then it just started to kind of take off. And then next thing you know, head of deal desk from Stripe, head of deal desk from Airbnb, all these companies started joining and they started having like real conversations in this community we created. The really valuable thing about that was now all of a sudden we had very unique insights into this very niche persona about the problem they have, and that was what gave us a lot of inspiration on how we could apply like AI to these like sales contracts and sales proposals, very specific to them. So that's kind of how we started and how we got to where we are now.
Cool. Any advice on like building communities from scratch?
It's a lot of work. I would say try and hack it like as much as possible. I was trying to find any related community that people like these deal desk people might be in and get them into our community. And that worked out pretty well. That got us to like our first 50 users, and then people started sharing it, and we got to 100, and then we started getting more people in, like just like through cold outreach, hey, join my community. And then even anytime I took a call, I would always get them in the community. Every time I took like be it a sales call or a discovery call, I'd be like, hey, it was great chatting. I also have a community with a lot more deal desk related people, and they would always be interested in joining. So that was kind of how we're trying to create this like flywheel to get more people in. So it grew based off that.
Cool. So going back to like your journey, because a lot of it happened in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You're from Ottawa.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, we can all kind of notice that there's like a trend of folks who are doing great things in Canada, but moving to the Bay Area or anywhere in the U.S. to continue their venture because a lot of different reasons. Maybe it's investment environment here is not as great or as fast paced as in Silicon Valley or San Francisco. Yeah. So, do you have any opinions on that? Like in terms of like, because I know when you were in San Francisco for your badge, there were other Canadian founders as well. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that, and what were some of the reasons why the other founders also went out there.
Yeah, this is a tough one just because there are a lot of talented Canadian founders, but there's just not an ecosystem to support them. So you see this trend of very bright and talented Canadian founders going to the States for new opportunities. Before I'd like ever raised $1 from any U.S. investor, I tried really hard from Canadian investors. And it's kind of just one of those things, if you're a Canadian entrepreneur, you just have to go through. Like you just try, and then because you don't know anything else. So I remember I had so many conversations with Canadian investors and stuff like that, and it just was it was very difficult. The expectations were ridiculous in terms of how much revenue you have, how many customers you have, and such like that. So really not willing to take that risk. And I think for a lot of companies, a lot of startups, like you really have to start somewhere. And going to the States truly is just kind of the land of opportunity. Like there are opportunities for people who are super early. People will invest in you with just an idea. They'll invest in you just based off of you. So I think myself and a lot of other Canadian founders kind of quickly picked that up and saw that we are working on something. It may not be at the level that everybody expects it to be as like a Canadian investor, but these U.S. investors are willing to take that risk. So let's go to the States and let's kind of try it out down there. So yeah.
Yeah, and what do you think could be changed for like Canadian investors to, I guess, create an environment where people actually want to, stay in Canada and start the company as opposed to like leaving?
Just more support for earlier stages. I think in Canada, there's really not even that much VC going around, or there's no VC like capital that's really accessible. A lot of it is just grants. So I think like building out better communities and better support for earlier stages would be a huge benefit, because it's pretty sad the amount of young talent that is just going to the States, and Canada's losing these large companies. There's many Canadian founders that go through a program like YC, create a Delaware C Corp, and now they're just established in the States, and that's kind of it. There's no ties to Canada anymore. So Canada, even as an economy, is just missing out on these like early stage opportunities. So I would just say like maybe more programs that would create some openness around funding or anything like that. Or Canadian VCs need to be creating like parts of their fund to take really early bets on like very special, like smart Canadian founders. I think that's what's needed right now.
Yeah. What about how to bring some of the founders or companies back to Canada? Do you have any ideas on that?
It's pretty tough, man. I think once you start somewhere, like I can speak to Ottawa, once you kind of start in Ottawa and then you go to somewhere like San Francisco and you see the culture shift, like the massive shift and the massive opportunity, it's really hard to go back, because then I think a lot of people would just be questioning like, am I able to be just as successful here as somewhere else? And in most case scenarios, it is location dependent. A lot of these opportunities depend on you being somewhere similar to me, like getting that lunch with with a YC founder and getting that opportunity. That was because I was there in person. So there's a lot of in-person things that you kind of have to capitalize on that just aren't, accessible anywhere else.
For sure. So for like a founder who was in your shoes like 2-3 years ago, regardless of where they want to be or where they can be in the world, what advice would you give them?
I would say branch out. I think it's easier said than done to just pick up your bags and like move to San Francisco or like do some crazy stuff like we did, like just go out there for a few months and freestyle it. I would say it's very feasible to establish, connections and personal brand online through X, through LinkedIn. Like, if you think the opportunity is in San Francisco and there's people there, like try and reach out to them beforehand to set something up or to validate what you're building or anything like that. I think there's just this, part of Canada or be it Ottawa that is just very shut off to anywhere else. And people think, okay, I'm a founder based in Ottawa and I need to build here, when it's not the case. So I would say branch out, see what opportunities are available like in the States. And then once you feel comfortable enough, take that risk. You really have to take that risk. This is a risk-based game we're playing. So it's kind of part of it.
Cool. Anything on the near horizon for you, Outlit or anything like that?
Yeah, we've been out of program for a few months now and things have been going really well. Just starting to work with some larger companies, always iterating, always learning, always trying to launch like the next product, the next iteration. So a lot of exciting stuff on that front, but we're in this stage where we're just trying to validate and build and sell as much as we can. So, yeah.
Maybe from the same batch with you guys. And he said that after YC, he just sees everything in terms of like launches. So you just have a launch that you work towards, and then by that time you launch it. Maybe it's a week-long thing. Maybe it's just a video drop. Maybe it's a changelog email. But there's always some sort of like a goal, a deadline that you work towards, and there's like always like a launch day or like a demo day at YC. So cool, man. Any last words?
No, man, I really appreciate having me here. Always happy to share this story. Hopefully some Canadian founders will find some interest in it. But yeah, man, it's really a pleasure to be here.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Man. Appreciate it.